My name is Charlotte. I have 2 sisters. I don't say this to brag, but I am confident in my ability to consistently put in effort and produce results. When faced with challenges, I can tirelessly work on them. Teachers and friends at school appreciated my hard work. But surprisingly, my family, who are the closest to me, continued to treat me unfairly. This was very painful for me, and it eventually became a major issue. Our family was not wealthy. We were a family of 5, including my parents and sisters, living in a somewhat old-fashioned house. But there was a reason for that. The house we live in was built by my grandfather on my father's side. I don't even know how old it is. However, my grandfather worked hard when he was young and became successful, leading to his wealth. He built his home in a very prime location and had many spacious rooms. My grandparents on my father's side passed away when I was in elementary school. My grandfather, in particular, was very special to me. His death was a great shock, and I couldn't stop crying on the day of the funeral. When I couldn't leave the coffin, the funeral attendees spoke to me kindly. At that time, I was overwhelmed with sadness. Yet the other family members were enjoying themselves drinking. I couldn't join them and be merry. My grandfather's death was truly heartbreaking for me. He always told me, "Charlotte, you are a hard-working child. If you put your mind to anything, you can surely find a way and succeed." Those words have always stayed with me, and I've devoted myself to doing the best I can. However, strangely, I felt like I didn't fit in with my family. This might be because every day, my dad would complain about his job. And even though my sisters didn't perform well at school, they acted very arrogantly. To be honest, to outsiders, my parents and sisters might seem a bit shameless. Well, I can't say that to them, though. On the other hand, my parents and sisters seem to view me as an embarrassment. Despite my better academic performance, I hardly received any praise, whereas they would lavish compliments on my sisters for the smallest of achievements. During our school days, I never heard of my sisters scoring above 80 on a test. If I recall correctly, they were always on the brink of failing. A score like 60 is just fine. Getting good marks on a test isn't everything. Yet when I would bring home tests with scores above 90, just because you score high doesn't mean you'll be successful in the future. Can't you find an easier way to study? Why can't you be more like us? Charlotte, it's strange. While my friends would be praised by their parents for good grades, I was the one getting scolded. It didn't make sense to me. Moreover, on my sisters' birthdays, they would have special large cakes, but on mine, "Oh, right, it's Charlotte's birthday today, isn't it?" Without even a word of celebration. Why is it just me? It used to make me sad. When my grandfather was alive, he always celebrated with me and gave me gifts. After my grandfather passed away, I felt even more out of place in my family. Still, they provided me with meals and let me go to school. So I thought I shouldn't complain. I was still a student without an income, so I had no choice but to rely on my parents. That's the reality. However, it wasn't just my parents who were hard on me. My sisters were also unfair in their treatment of me. For instance, after dinner, in our house, the rule was that you wash the dishes you used. I'm so full, I can't move. Charlotte, can you wash my dishes for me? I can't do it either. Charlotte, can you wash mine too? Then, without waiting for my reply, they would start watching TV, lounging on the sofa, leaving me to do all the cleaning. Hey, you know about the rules, right? Charlotte is the youngest, so it can't be helped. Listen to your older sisters and wash the dishes for them. Some spoiled kids shouldn't complain. Don't be so cheeky, even though you're the youngest. Whenever my parents said that, I couldn't retort. I would inevitably end up washing my sister's dishes. Seeing this, my sisters would just laugh. If my parents were people worthy of respect, I would willingly obey them. But in reality, they were far from it. My dad, despite getting older, remained a mere employee earning nothing to boast about. Despite the meager earnings, he'd always drink and sometimes shout loudly enough to disturb the neighbors. Hey, can't you reduce the price a bit more? You're closing soon, right? If you're going to throw it away, just make it cheaper. Wouldn't it be better if you priced it as if 2 items are discounted to the price of 1? This isn't cheap at all. I'm going to another store. As for Mom, she would often say things like this to the store staff, haggling over prices without any shame, even if other customers heard. With this being the daily norm, I never felt a sense of respect towards my family. I believed that I just had to go along with whatever my parents and sisters wanted. Given the circumstances, I decided to focus on my studies and carve out my own future. In a way, my family served as what you might call negative role models. I was strongly determined not to become like them. At school, on the other hand, my teachers and friends acknowledged and appreciated me. That became the support and strength for me to work towards my goals. So, even when my sisters got jobs after high school, I told my parents that I wanted to go to university. While my sisters didn't have the academic skills for college, I wanted to take a different path. What are you talking about? Have you not seen how our family operates? There's no way we can pay for your college. Exactly. Why don't you start working early so you won't be a burden to us? You're being so disrespectful. I had anticipated these reactions, so I had already researched scholarships to ensure that I wouldn't place a financial burden on my parents for university. But even though they weren't spending a dime on my education, they continued to complain about me attending university on a daily basis. It wasn't pleasant for me, but I tried not to let it get to me and kept pushing forward on my chosen path. In reality, I spent almost no time at home, dedicating most of it to my studies and part-time job. Whenever I encountered something I didn't understand, I would go to school to ask the teachers, and at the same time, I put a lot of effort into my part-time job to save money for the future. Essentially, I only returned home to eat and sleep. As a result, during my university years, I did not participate in trivial exchanges with my family. I didn't even have the time to listen. Consequently, I graduated from university with excellent grades and was able to confidently secure a position at a major telecommunications company. To be honest, I wanted to prove something to my family. I wanted to make my grandfather's inherited words, "If you work hard, you'll achieve great success," a reality. I wanted to show my family that the grades I aimed for in school, above 90%, led to this result, now employed at a globally recognized company. I expected that they wouldn't have anything negative to say about me and would be proud. However, I was painfully reminded that my way of thinking didn't resonate with them. My job mainly involved programming given tasks using a computer and sending them to the headquarters via the internet. Although there were branch offices, much of the work could be done from home. Like other employees, I commuted only once or twice a week, following the same work pattern. About a month after joining the company, I began receiving praise from my superior. "Charlotte, you're truly amazing. To think you can already handle this job. You're talented. I look forward to seeing more from you." Respected as a promising newcomer by other employees, I grew even more passionate about my job. I even received hints that maintaining good performance could open opportunities for promotions. Although I had faced harsh treatment from my family, the results of my job brought some ease to my life and emotions. Gratitude towards my family started to grow in my heart. The undeniable fact was that they had supported me to this point. I thought that if I got promoted in the future and my salary increased, I would give my parents a bit of pocket money to express my gratitude. Though my current salary might not be sufficient, I held my grandfather's teachings close to my heart and resolved to work hard to make it a reality. I continued to approach my work with optimism. One day, I was confronted with unbelievable words from my father. That day, I was engrossed in programming in my room as usual. Suddenly, Dad burst into my room, his voice almost a shout. "Hey, how long are you going to play around like that? Start taking your job seriously." I was a mix of surprise and confusion. I remembered explaining to my parents about my job and how I worked before. Yet, it seemed like they didn't understand at all. If you're always at home, you're just like a neat and employed. You need to work more seriously. They seemed to imply that I was a neat, even though I have my own income and it's higher than my sister's. I couldn't understand why they treated me this way. What's more, my sisters also criticized me. "You work so hard but achieve nothing, right? Being called a neat. You wouldn't even be allowed in a normal house." I tried my best to explain my job and how I worked, hoping they would understand. But they refused to listen and saw me as a freeloader who didn't contribute to the household. Well, given their lack of education, I thought they would never understand my way of working. I decided not to try to persuade them and resolved to ignore their words. Explaining remote work to them would be futile without their recognition of its existence. Instead, I decided to focus all my energy on my work. However, after a while, I heard another unbelievable statement from Dad. "Enough is enough. You claim to be doing remote work, but you're no different from a neat. Pack your things and leave this house." I was dumbfounded by his words. The thought of being kicked out of my own home never crossed my mind. I never thought I'd be such a burden to my family. And in that moment, I felt more anger than sadness. That's right. If you leave, we won't have to spend money on you. No, we can save on Charlotte's food expenses. It'll help our household budget. Finally, we can live without worrying about your mood. Come on, Charlotte, start packing your things. They seemed to think they could say anything to me. I was both shocked and exasperated, feeling anger at them for not considering my feelings and spewing whatever they wanted. I was surprisingly able to keep my composure at that moment. Amidst their smirking, I calmly said, "If that's truly what you think, then I'll leave. Is that all right? What's with the attitude? We want you out as soon as today. Resigned to their wishes, I simply responded, "Understood." But they would never understand why I remained so calm. They failed to grasp something very important. Later, I decided to take swift action. Packing my bags as instructed, I remarked, "Well, I have to find a place to live, so I'm off to the estate agent." My family seemed genuinely pleased as they bid me farewell, probably wishing from the bottom of their hearts that I would leave. I easily found a suitable apartment and moved in. However, there was still business left with my old home. A few days later, I returned to my family home, bringing the estate agent with me. My parents looked puzzled. "What do you want now? Got some business here. What's the matter? You're not thinking of coming back, are you?" The family seemed unhappy with my return and continued with their abrasive remarks. But I paid them no mind. Then the estate agent posed a question to me. "So, as of tomorrow, someone else will be residing in this house. You have no issues with changing the name on the deed?" I nodded in agreement and announced to everyone, "So, starting from tomorrow, this house will belong to Dad. Congratulations. Please make sure you pay the rent promptly." My family seemed utterly confused and taken aback by my proposition. "What are you talking about? I don't understand. This is my house. Why would there be rent?" The estate agent seemed slightly surprised as he explained, "I apologize for the confusion. The deed for this house is under Charlotte's name. Following Charlotte's request, the deed was changed to your name. Effective from tomorrow, all procedures have been completed. So we would like to request the monthly rent payment, which amounts to $2,000. The entire family was shocked by this statement. $2,000. There must be some mistake, right? What's going on? This has always been my house. I don't understand. I should have inherited this house from my father." Seeing my father starting to panic, I gently explained the situation. "Dad, after Grandpa passed away, you never took care of any of the necessary procedures, right? You never officially took over this house. At one point, it became a rental property. I decided to rent it and signed a contract so that everyone could live here. Weren't you aware of that? Having it as a rental meant that depending on circumstances, we could leave immediately, right? Grandpa probably did it thinking about everyone's best interests. But who would have thought that everyone would continue living in this old house? Well, maybe it's typical of a family that can't manage their own affairs. It seems Dad had mistakenly thought he inherited all of Grandpa's assets. Reality isn't always that sweet. However, the family was skeptical about how I had been able to pay $2,000 in rent every month. I calmly organized the facts and continued to explain to them. I was the one who was supposed to inherit Grandpa's inheritance money. So I've been using that money to pay the rent. But now that money has run out. It worked out well, I guess. You'll have to manage from now on." Even after I explained, the family still looked unconvinced. "This isn't fair. That's absurd. Why are you taking over instead of me?" I continued to explain the situation to my family, slightly surprised by his late realization. "But Dad, you and Mom have troubled Grandpa a lot, haven't you? You spend your time playing instead of working, and always said you were short of money. Constantly asking Grandpa for more, right? Moreover, you spoiled my two sisters, teaching them only laziness. Haven't you overlooked how Mom spreads bad rumors about others everywhere? Grandpa said all of this and told me it was pathetic. He said he didn't want to leave his inheritance to such people. Hearing these words, both my parents and my sisters looked shocked. So, does that mean all of my father-in-law's property is really gone? I nodded immediately in response to Mom's words. Although Grandpa did earn a lot, he had selfish children and grandchildren, so it's all gone. Dad, do you remember how many times you got drunk and punched a hole in the wall? Each time, Grandpa paid for the repairs. Mom, you always wanted branded bags just like young girls, right? And when he didn't buy them for you, you'd constantly complain. Grandpa was fed up with it. And didn't my sisters also take advantage of Grandpa a lot? If you keep doing such things, of course it'll all be gone, right? I had heard from my grandpa about everything the family had done to him, so I was confident I could answer any question about it. Wait a minute. The rent here is $2,000? That's too much for such an old place, isn't it? Isn't there any way? She pleaded, trembling. Despite its age, the location and size of this place make it quite valuable. It's market price. Nobody could respond to that reply for a while. I no longer needed this house or my family. Thinking it best for the remaining family to do as they please, I bowed to everyone and decided to return to my new home. Afterwards, I received calls almost daily from my parents and sisters. It seemed their life had become quite challenging. Not only the rent, but also utilities had to be added to their monthly expenses. Since Mom doesn't work, the family's living expenses depended solely on Dad and my sister's salaries. However, Dad had a habit of wasting money on alcohol, and my sisters hardly worked, so their income was insufficient. As a result, they seemed to have fallen into debt since my departure. They had no choice but to move out of the rental house my grandfather left behind and into a small, cheap rental home where all four lived together. Naturally, they couldn't each have their own room and seemed to be living cramped in a 6-mat living room. It's the outcome of relying on Grandpa's money for a long time and living without making any effort. I doubt they will change their ways in the future. They probably lack the grit to work hard in the first place. On the other hand, my passion for my job was recognized, and I was promoted at a very early stage. I play a central role in the branch, now even accompanying international business trips, living an exhilarating day-to-day. Privately, colleagues who understand and appreciate my efforts have appeared, making both my personal and professional life fulfilling.